The Undiscovered Self was written during a time of apocalyptic and dystopic visions, the Iron Curtain and the Great Division of the East and the West. The book was first published in 1961. The decade after the end of the Second World War, the 1950s, was marked by mass consumerism and conformity. Advertising was in its early stages, and it was not sophisticated in the way it targeted people. And this was less a shortcoming of advertising and more a symptom of an age where most people were very similar. This decade is also known for the economic booms many countries had experienced, after the devastating effects of the Second World War. Many people in this generation had witnessed the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945. The threat of a Third World War or nuclear bombs was real and terrifying. In addition to the many soldiers and families who had been traumatized by the events of the past, there were many more who lived in fear of what would come next. In fact, Jung opens the book with a question. What does the future bring? Jung, at the time, was addressing a person who had lost his individuality to the will of the multitudes, who were far more organized and powerful. In this book, Jung dives into the depths of the human psyche in order to uncover what he calls the collective unconscious. This hidden part of the mind, he argues, is the source of our deepest fears and desires. By understanding and coming to terms with the collective unconscious, we can lead more fulfilling lives. Jung begins by discussing the history of Western thought, from its roots in ancient Greece through its peak in the Renaissance. He then looks at how modernity has led to a decline in religious belief and an increase in materialism. This has resulted in a compartmentalization of the human experience, where we see ourselves as individuals disconnected from each other and from the world around us. Jung argues that this disconnection is dangerous because it leads to a feeling of estrangement and rootlessness. When we are not connected to our deeper selves, we are more likely to act out in destructive ways. To heal this disconnection, we need to turn inward and confront the collective unconscious. Only by doing so can we hope to create a more harmonious world. The knowledge we have about ourselves is an offshoot of the beliefs of our immediate social environment. But true self-knowledge can only emerge from the individual who chooses to engage with facts about oneself. That is why general theories that seek to explain the self are impoverished and unimpressive. There is a great temptation among educated people to explain human behavior through statistics and averages. But Jung points out that such information is only useful insofar as the masses are concerned, but they tell us nothing about the individual. That is always the problem with stereotypes. It may be interesting to know that, in general, Germans are hard-working or people from the Middle East tend to gravitate towards middlemen jobs, but this information tells us nothing about a German individual or a Middle Eastern individual. In contrast to a group, which can be easily described by some average variable, the individual has thoughts, dreams, feelings, ideas, doubts, experiences, and relationships which are totally unique and irreducible. If you want to understand whether you should get married, embark on a career path, or move to a different country, it would be silly to look at statistics. The subject in question here is yourself. Marriage, career, and place of residence are questions that can best be answered, not by learning about divorce rates, average salary, or average standard of living, but by investigating your own idiosyncratic set of characteristics, and your own unique situation. Conceptualizing the world with statistics can lead us to treat individuals as anonymous units that pile up in mass formations. When this occurs, moral responsibility shifts from the individual to the state. Instead of moral and mental differentiation of the individual, you have public welfare and the raising of the living standard. The result is that people do not derive their goals and meaning from individual development, but through the state. After the state is given responsibility for everything, certain individuals take power of the state. And the masses, an unorganized, formless entity in desperate need for order, especially on the back of a period of great turmoil and hardship, willingly resigns its autonomy to the individuals in power, the ruling elite. This breeds dictatorships and authoritarian regimes. As the crowd expands, the individual becomes less important, until they become negligible. Statistical truths and large numbers marginalize the importance of the individual personality. Jung recalls a thoughtful comment he had heard from a friend. Here you have the most convincing reason for not believing in immortality. All those people want to be immortal. Jung believes that the bulwark to the collectivization, and elimination, of the individual resides in his faith in God. Since the world is amoral and dangerous, the individual cannot defend himself with his own resources. He needs to be anchored in God. He needs evidence of a powerful internal transcendent experience which can defend him against submersion in the mass. It is not enough to have intellectual or moral insight into the moral irresponsibility of the mass man, since that constitutes a negative recognition. It is not much more than a wavering on the road to the atomization of the individual. In short, without religion, the individual is defenseless against any form of mass propaganda. Jung was highly critical of the dictator state which, according to him, committed two crimes simultaneously. The first was to rob the individual of his rights. The second was to cut the ground from underneath his feet by depriving him of the metaphysical foundations of his existence. Of course, Jung does not mean this literally. But rather, by orienting the individual towards a life of mass-mindedness, the state leaves no room for the cultivation of spirit. The ethical decisions of the individual no longer matter since the dictates of a society are determined by the movement of the masses. The prevailing idea in economically prosperous societies is that man has become the master of his own destiny, but this is an illusion, says Jung. The reality is that he is the slave and victim of the machines that have conquered space and time for him. He is intimidated and endangered by the might of the war technique, which is supposed to safeguard his physical existence, his spiritual and moral freedom. People are not so good at understanding themselves psychologically. If one is to really gain insight, they must make the effort to understand their subconscious. But people often have a fear of the unconscious psyche, and this fear not only impedes self-knowledge, but is the gravest obstacle to a wider understanding of psychology.